a little bit about yourself and your career, the job you do, and how long you've been doing this?
Well, my present job is being in charge of the English translation section at the International Court of Justice in The Hague. The International Court of Justice is the United Nations Court. Some people call it the World Court. I've been there for about 2 years. I started my career as a translator with the European Parliament in 1980, where I worked for 10 years. Then I came back to the UK. I ran a translation and interpreting business for another 10 years or so, and I then moved sideways into the university world and worked at the University of Bath running its postgraduate interpreting and translating course.
A very varied career. Can you tell me how you got started in your career and what kind of training did you do to become a translator?
Well, I did a very conventional language and literature type of degree course in French and German, and I didn't go straight into translating or interpreting. I had always really wanted to use my languages, so at that time the easiest route to take was to go into teaching. So I actually trained as a teacher, and I worked in a secondary school for 2 years teaching French and German. And at that point I decided that really I wanted to do something different, and so I looked around for the training possibilities and found a course here at the University of Bath, which I did, and I went straight into my first job at the end of that course.
What qualities do you need in order to be a good interpreter and translator?
Well, in both jobs, the main quality that you need is, of course, to have a very good understanding of the foreign languages that you're working with, but in particular also an absolutely perfect command of your own mother tongue, so the language that you're working into, which is an aspect, I think, which is sometimes overlooked. Apart from that, as an interpreter, you do need to have very quick reactions. You have to be very articulate. You have to be able to work under pressure and not be put off by the stress of a situation. As a translator, it's much less stressful, but the job does still carry its own stress because you have to work to strict deadlines. It may be that you have more than one text on the go at any one time, and there may be a certain amount of pressure to meet your deadline. Otherwise, for a translator, a very good eye for detail, a meticulous approach. But I think if I had to pick out just one quality, it would be a really excellent command of your own mother tongue.
Thank you. What are the most interesting aspects of what you do? Can you relate any interesting episodes?
The most interesting aspects? Well, I think you would just have to say the intellectual satisfaction, especially as a translator, that you have carried out a task and the text that you've produced is actually going to mean something, and in some cases go down in posterity. The only amusing episode I can think of off the cuff is that I've been working at the European Parliament on a text about fisheries, and the next morning the radio alarm went off, and it was the early morning farming programme on Radio 4, and just as I was struggling into a state of consciousness, I heard the presenter reading out part of the text that I translated about fisheries policy the previous day, and I really thought I was having a nightmare at that point. But there you are, it had gone instantly into the public domain.
Do you have any tips for budding linguists?
Well, at the risk of repeating myself, I would have to say, yes, you're probably doing languages because you enjoy learning and speaking languages, you like travelling abroad, and you enjoy finding out about foreign culture. But my real tip would be, don't neglect your own mother tongue.
How important are linguists in the organisation you work for?
Well, quite simply, the International Court of Justice couldn't function without the linguists, because although it only has 2 official languages, French and English, it's essential that everybody understands all the documentation, all the proceedings that take place. So it just could not operate without translators and, to a slightly lesser extent, interpreters.
So do you yourself use your language skills on a daily basis?
I do every day, not just in terms of translating and revising, but also in just day-to-day routine dealings with other members of staff.
Can you describe a typical week?
A typical week probably won't sound very interesting because I work a fairly regular 9 to 5 kind of office existence, and for 90% of that time I shall be sitting in my office working on documents which will either be things that I'm translating myself, or for perhaps 40–50% of the time revising documents which have been produced by other members of our team. The other 10% of the time would be taken up in administrative work of various sorts, in particular finding translators, perhaps external translators, to help us with ongoing work, and then just routine dealings with our secretariat and other people within court. So not very exciting.
So what about the 10% that are very exciting? You said 90% in the office.
90% is in the office, translating and revising. The other 10%, getting me out of the office, is about as exciting as it gets.
Thank you very much, Dr. Slade.
You're welcome.